Yeah. Go ahead, Swapnadeep. All the best.
Thank you. So, welcome to the first talk of the second edition of November Talks. I'm Swapnadeep and I'm going to talk about GraphQL, getting started with GraphQL. So, for starting, a bit of introduction about me. I'm currently in grade 12 and I write JavaScript and sometimes TypeScript. I have been writing JavaScript since 4 years now, and I'm interested in all these things. And I also read a lot of books, and including R.D. Sarman Sivarma. So, what is GraphQL? So, GraphQL is a query language, and either way, this is the definition that is given on the official documentation of GraphQL, and it goes something like GraphQL is a query language for APIs and a runtime for fulfilling those queries with your existing data. GraphQL provides a complete and understandable description of the data in your API, gives client the power to ask for exactly what they need and nothing more, makes it easier to evolve APIs over time and enables powerful developer tools. I think it's not be making that much of sense, but I want you to focus on this line, that is, gives client the power to ask for exactly what they need and nothing more. So to understand this more further, let's take an example. So for example, you are making a blog site and you need data to render in your home page. So you are like rendering your data in your home feed and you need some data. So as a UI developer, you ask your API developer to give you a bunch of data, and you ask your API developer to give you a blog title and author name so that you can render all those things in your home page. And what your API developer gives you is everything. If API developer gives you like the whole document, he gives you every other field that is present in the database. So this is what you need. You only need the title of the blog and the author's name. And this is what you get everything, like you get the title, the date when it was created, the ID, the description, the cover data, the full blog. In fact, you get like everything. So this is what you actually need. You need uh, y- you need the title and the author's name. So this is what we call is a GraphQL query. So we have So in GraphQL, we have two basic things, that is the query and mutation. But in case of RESTful APIs, we have multiple things, like we have get, we have post, we have patch, we have put, we have update and delete. But in case of GraphQL, we have only two things, that is query and mutation. So query is similar to get and mutation is similar to post, put, patch, update and delete. So now let's take a look at some of the public GraphQL APIs. So I have two APIs. One is the Rick and Morty API and the second one is the SpaceX API. So let me just open this APIs. So this is the Rick and Morty API. So and this is what we call is a GraphQL playground. So as you can see, we have a docs pane over here, and once you click on this you can see every queries that is present in the API. So as I told before, every query is similar to a get request in REST API. So we can click on the first query and see what it is. So the first query gives us a specific character by ID, and this is the name of the function, and it takes a parameter of ID, and ID is a type of ID, and this exclamation sign over here represent that it is required, and it returns a character. So what is a character? So character has all these fields, like it has name, status, species, types, gender, origin, location, image, episode and created. So what is name? So the name is the name of the character, and the type is string. So string is a scalar type. So what is scalar? So scalar is very similar to primitive data type that we have in general in languages. So these are the arguments that we have the ID. So now let's take a look at the second query, that is the characters. So characters gives us a list of all the characters. It takes two parameters, that is the page number and a filter. So the filter is uh, again we have a lot of fields inside of the filter, and the page is again a scalar type. We have to only pass an integer, and we don't have an exclamation sign, so it is not required. So the characters gives us two things in return, that is the info and a list of characters. So in info we have the count, we have pages, name and previous. In results we have multiple fields, like we have name, status, species, type, gender and all this. So let's run the first query. So to run the first query we have to first start with a pair of curly braces. So we have to put a curly braces, and then we have to write the keyword query. So we have to write the name of the function that we have. So we have characters. So actually the character takes in a parameter that is required, and we don't have any ID, so we will be starting with characters. So in characters we can also pass page number and a filter as well, but we won't be passing that initially. So we won't be adding a parenthesis in the beginning. So we will be again putting a pair of curly braces so that we can select what we need. So we have info, and inside of the info we have multiple things, like we have count, then we have pages, we can select anything from it. Then we can again select from results, we can select I will be selecting ID and status. So when I run this, we can see the data object, and inside of the info we are getting the count and the page number. Then uh, and this is actually the number of characters, that is the count, and pages signify the number of pages that we have. So in case of results we have an array of characters, and in each character we have only two fields, that is the name and status. So we can select one more thing from here. Let's say we are selecting species. So when I run this, I only get these three fields, that is name, status and species. So now if I don't want to get this info, I can simply remove this, and I will be only getting what we required, that is the name, status and species. So this is how we basically write the query in GraphQL. We can also add a keyword of query in the very starting, and it will also do the same thing that the previous one did. We can also uh, add a name over here, get all characters, and it will we are simply naming our query, but the functionality is almost the same. So now let's take a look at uh, mutation. So what is mutation? So the mutation is very much similar to what we have in normal REST API, that is the we have post, put, patch and update. So we have another API, that is the SpaceX API. So in this we have a bunch of queries. So before moving on to the queries, we will be showing some I will be showing some example of queries. So this is a GraphQL playground, and the before one was a Apollo playground. So GraphQL playground is almost the similar to the Apollo playground. The one thing that I like about GraphQL is this explore pane. So once you click on this explore, you can get all of this list of queries, and you can select what you require. So if I want, I can select this thing, that is the launches past, and in that I can select what all fields I need. I can only click on the check buttons and I will be getting everything. Let's say I need ID, then I will be needing the mission name and maybe the rocket name, and yeah, and I can click on the run button and I will be getting the list of all the past launches, that is the Starlink and Starlink and everything. And what we can do in GraphQL is we can, okay, I hope my voice is audible. Okay, yeah. So what we can do is we can uh, do multiple queries at a single time. So let's say in addition to launches past, I want the company details as well. I need the CEO and COO, and I will be getting that as well. So where is, yeah, so we have Elon Musk name over there. So what we can do is we can do multiple queries in a single HTTP call. So this is a very plus point of having a GraphQL API. So now coming on to the queries, instead of doing queries in a public API, what I will be doing is I will be doing in a local one. Like I have actually made a GraphQL API that is for the blog post. So you can see, like in the documentation, we have queries, mutations, and subscription. So in the blogs, we have like types. The blog returns all these things like title, ID, description, cover image, the whole blog, author's name, tags, and everything. And mutation is also there. So first, now let's run the blog. So get blogs, then I will be writing the name of the blog, name of the query, then I will be selecting the ID, then the title and the description. And once I run this thing, I am getting the ID, title, and description. Let me remove the ID and I only get the title and description. So now take a look at the mutation. So I will be creating a new tab, and in that I will be talking about mutation. So what is this mutation? So in this mutation, as the name suggests, it is used to add new blogs. So it takes some parameters like title, description, cover image, the blog, the author's name, tags, etc. And it gives us a blog in return, that is the that is having fields like title, ID, description, cover image, blog, author's name, and tags. So let me do a mutation. For writing a mutation, we have to start with a mutation keyword, then a pair of curly braces, and inside of that we will be writing the name of the mutation or the name of the function, that is the add blocks. So in the add blocks, we will be passing something. So first I will be passing a title, that is the uh, you can pass anything. I am passing new blog. Then I will be passing a description as well, that is anything, a very new blog. So, and in return, we can select something like an ID, a description, and a title. So when I run it, it will create a new blog and it will give us these fields in return. Now, if I go back to the get blogs, I can, like the last, you can say it is blah blah blah, and if I again get the run this query, I will be getting the new blog. So our new blog is added. So now we can also name our mutation, like I can name it as add blog and run this thing, and it will be doing the same thing. And one more thing that we can do is we can like pass everything as a parameter. Like instead of hard coding all of this, we can actually pass it from the top, or we can also pass it in the query variables. So what I will be doing is I will be removing uh, this and the description, and I will be adding a pair of parentheses in the top, and I will be writing dollar title. So what dollar title is? So dollar title is kind of a variable that we are assigning. So and the title is of type string, and also we will be adding a description, and which is again of type string, and we will be passing this title, the dollar title, uh, in case inside of this add block function, and also dollar description in this. So now we will be adding our variables inside of the query variables. So it goes in like an object. So the first thing, that is the title. The title is gonna be, let's say, GraphQL, and the description is gonna be getting started with GraphQL. Okay, so now if I run this thing, we will be getting the blog ID, the description and title. So, and this is another way of writing a mutation. What we do is we add a mutation keyword in the very beginning, then we name our mutation anything, then we add these variables with their types, and we can get these types from this documentation, like the title is of type string and the description is of type string. So we are getting that data from it, then we are passing those variables in the add block, and we are selecting these fields and getting it. So now let's move on to the next thing, that is the subscription. Now, subscription is very much similar to what we do in case of socket connections or real-time communication. So we have a subscription that we have. Yeah. So we have a new blog subscription. Now, what new blog subscription gives us in return is title, ID, description, cover image, blog, and all these things. So now, how subscription work? So subscription uh, actually uses a mechanism that is known as the publisher subscriber mechanism, or sub mechanism. So once I run it, I will be understanding this better. So now so this is how a subscription is written. The subscription starts with a subscription keyword, then name, we can name it anything like blogs added, then a pair of curly braces, and inside of that we will be writing the name of the function, that is the new blog. And inside of the new blog we will be selecting the title, the ID, and the description. So once I run this, it doesn't get resolved, it is now listening. So what listening means is it is constantly listening to any change or any things that happens, and after that we get the response. So now if I go to the add blog and I create a new blog, let's say I am running the same mutation again, that is with the title GraphQL and the description of getting started. Now when I run this thing, I in the subscription I get the data, like I get the title of the GraphQL and this id is same as of this id. Now we have the description of getting started. So when I create another block, let's say I'm creating GraphQL 2 and getting started 2, and if I run it, then in the subscription you will be seeing another response. So yeah, like this is how GraphQL subscription works. Now let's take a look at how GraphQL actually works with React. So I have made a simple project a blog site using GraphQL, and I have posted this thing in my GitHub, and in the GitHub I have this many branches. First one is the master branch. Let me just share the link in the chat so that you can also see it. So we have the master branch. The master branch contains nothing but the CRA code, that is the create React app starter code. And then we have the query branch that contains the React code for GraphQL query. Now let's go to the client and let's see how does it looks. Let me just zoom it a bit. Now we are on the master branch. So we are on the master branch. So we are getting the starter code. So if I go do git checkout to query and I do a refresh, then I will be getting all of our blocks that we have. So now take a look at the code. So first is the index.js file, and in the index.js file we have this Apollo provider and Apollo client. So what is an Apollo client? So Apollo is basically a interface that helps us to communicate with our GraphQL API. So this Apollo provider actually takes a parameter of client. So what client is? So client is an instance of Apollo client, and it takes two parameters, that is the URI and the cache. Now what is URI? So URI is basically the link of your GraphQL API. And what is cache? So cache is, now first let's talk about a cache a bit. So in case of HTTP caching, what happens is when you have something like let's say a localhost 4000 slash blocks, then what happens is our HTTP caching kicks in and it caches this for you. But in case of GraphQL, we have only a single endpoint, and if and every query and every mutation goes as a post request to that particular link. So it's HTTP caching doesn't work over there. So in that case, we have something that is the in-memory cache that GraphQL is using to cache everything. So we pass that uh, client into the Apollo provider. So now let's move to the app.js, and inside of the app.js we have the very first thing that we have is the get block query. So this get block query is the same one that we had uh, it is the same one that we had over here. So yeah, like we are selecting all these things, like we are selecting title, ID, description, cover image, and the name of the author. Then we are using the use query hook. So Apollo GraphQL provides us the use query hook, and inside of the use query hook we can pass our uh, the query string or the mutation string or anything, and it gives us three things in return. It gives us a loading state, error, and the data. So we are simply checking if it is loading, then we are returning a loading bar, a simple loading message, and in case of an error we have displaying the error. And if there is a data and there is no error and the loading is completed, then we are simply like the mapping iterating through the blog array and displaying the blog. And now inside of the car component we are simply like displaying all of the data. Now if I show you the site, it looks something like this. Now if I go to the developer pane and show you the Apollo, yeah, this is the Apollo uh, dev tools that we are having, and inside of this we have a cache, and uh, basically it is caching everything over here. So we have two queries, that is the get blocks. It is executed 2 times. So inside of this we are like storing all of our blog items, and we have every reference to the blog. So what happens in the cache is the cache is stored in a linear format. It is not stored in like a tree or a nested format. So what we have is like we have the all of the blog list, and inside of the blog list we have a single reference id, and the reference id refers to another blog item. So it is so everything is cached in a linear format, and it is not stored in case of a nested format or a tree format. So now that's the query is done. Now let's take a look at the mutation. So I will be doing git checkout mutation, and inside of that in the index.js it is pretty much the same, and in the app.js it is also the same, but we have one more thing over here, that is the add component. And if I go to the add component, we have the add block query that is very much similar to that we saw in our Apollo playground. Okay, so we have a question, is it necessary to use Apollo? Yeah. So we can avoid using Apollo. We can use any other client, like we can use Relay or GraphQL, Yoga or anything like that. But then, uh, like we won't be able to like take the advantages of query, like the cache that Apollo provides us. So we can also do a fetch request because everything is a HTTP call. Like everything is a HTTP call. We can do a fetch, or in fact we can use Axios as well to do a query or mutation. But again, as we cannot use things like HTTP caching or anything, so that is why we are using Apollo. Like we can avoid using Apollo. We can use something like Relay is actually used by Facebook for its product, so we can use that as an alternative, or we can use a fetch as well, but it is not gives us the power of that Apollo gives us. So difference between GraphQL and GraphQL. Okay, so GraphQL is like a playground that we have. Like this is GraphQL. Like it is a playground that uh, it is a playground that gives like we can run our code in. It is very much similar to Postman that we used to test our REST API. So GraphQL is that playground that we can test, and GraphQL is the technology that we are using. How does caching work with Apollo? Yeah, so Apollo actually like caches everything. Like if I refresh, okay, so the refresh will again do it. Yeah, so we will be looking at the cache after some time. So the repository actually is having the GraphQL code, but it is there in the server branch. So you need to go to the server branch, and you will be able to see the GraphQL code. Can we remove Redux completely? Yeah, like companies like PayPal, and they are not using Redux. They are doing everything with GraphQL itself. Yeah. So now let's take a look at the uh, add.js. So yeah, like this is the uh, mutation that we are putting in. Then we are then passing the mutation inside of this inside of this, and we are passing the variables, and then we have an update thing. So this update, if I just comment it out, and if I go to my app, just a second. If I go to my app, hit a refresh, and I click on this add button, and I get the title and a description. And if I do a title, let's say I do a blog one and a description of new blog, and I run this, the blog is added, but we don't like get anything. And if I go to our playground and run it, then I will be seeing a blog one, but the blog is actually not added. And if I go to the Apollo, I will be in the cache. I can actually see the blog where it is. Okay. So in the query, we have only 13 blocks. We don't have the 14th one. So as we are using GraphQL, Apollo cache, so it is caching everything, and it is not doing a refetch or a re-render or basically a refetch when we do a mutation. So to do that thing, we have this update cache function. So what update cache function does, it simply goes and writes the query. It simply modify the queries, and so what it is doing is we are getting the add blog object, that is we are getting in return after we are like doing the mutation. Then we are destructuring it. Then we are going to the cache and reading the cache of get blocks, and this get blog is actually coming from this one. So we are going and like getting this cache, this blocks list, and we are writing that, and we are simply concatenating the blog with a new blog post. Now if I go and refresh it, you will be seeing a blog one, and if I add a new blog, that is the blog 2, and new blog 2, and after submitting you will be able to see another blog. So this is how caching works basically. Like it doesn't allow you to do a refetch. You can do a mutation, you can get the object that is added, and inside of your client you can simply like mutate that and add that. Now let's take a look at the subscription. So if I check out to the subscription branch, then inside of the app.js, we have another thing, that is the add new blog subscription. Then we are using the subscription data. We are using the use subscription. uh, Mutation is like post. Yes, like yes, Asak. Mutation is like post and update. Mutation is similar to what we actually do in case of post, put, patch, update, and delete. Mutation is similar to all those things, and query is similar to the GET request. So we are using the use subscription hook, and inside of that we are passing the new blog, and we have the on subscription data function. Inside of that we are getting the subscription. Then we are doing the same thing that we were doing, that we are updating the cache. Yeah, use subscription is a predefined hook that we can import from the Apollo client. Like Apollo client is giving us use subscription, use query, and use mutation, that we are importing from Apollo client. So now if I let me just open this thing in two new tabs so that you can see. Now just a second. uh, yeah So when I add a new blog over here, then the same blog will be added on our right side as well. I will be naming it as blog one, new blog. And when I do a submit, you can see a new blog is added over here as well. So this is how subscription work. Instead of update, yes, we can use refetch as well, but refetch will do another HTTP call, so it is most costly. So instead of that, what we are doing is we are like changing the local cache only. How does the sync happen with backend data? Backend data. Yeah, the we are mutating that thing in the backend first, and after the data is mutated in the backend, we are sending the new object from the backend to the front end, and in the front end we are modifying the cache and we are updating the cache. We are not doing another refetch. So yeah, that is how the normal caching, normal query, sorry, subscription work, where we caching the data. So we are caching the data in our local storage. We are doing in just a second. Okay, and, mm, I think what is not showing. Okay, we are caching the data in the local, in the browser's memory only, inside of the I don't know why it is not showing. Should be showing. I don't know why it is not showing, but yeah, like this is what this is where we are caching the data, and the data is cached in linear format, like I told. So we have all the queries over here. So the next thing that we have is testing our GraphQL API. So this is actually a bit of backend thing, but yeah, like it is JavaScript. So I'm telling you. So we have, so this is the code of this is a code of the backend that we have. So inside of the graph new Apollo, we are providing the resolvers and type def. So what is type defs? So type def is basically the schema that we are writing. So this is has all the fields of the block. Then we have the type mutation, then we have the mutations that we have. Then yeah, like this is what the schema is. Then we have the resolver. So resolver is having the logic of all the mutation and subscription and the query. Like we are what we are doing is we are simply doing a push inside of an array, and we are publishing so that our subscription works. So yeah, like this is what the basic subscription, sorry, resolvers and type def is. Now then we have the test.js. Inside of that we are using the Apollo server testing to test our GraphQL APIs. So the testing, so we are using this create test server function. The create test server function actually takes in the type defs and resolvers, then it returns us a Apollo server client, and it gives us two things in return, that is the query and the mutation. And inside of the query function we can do a await uh, query, and inside of the get blocks we can like check whether errors are there or not, whether the blog is there or not. Then we can do a simple comparison to do. Then the same thing with the GraphQL mutation as well. We can simply mutate it, and we can check whether the error is there or not, whether the block data is there or not, and we can do it. Now if I do a quick test where we define our schema, so the schema is defined on the backend. The schema is actually there in the backend. Schema is not there in the front end. Like this is the backend code that I am showing, and our tests are passed. The schema is there in the backend only, in the schema. Yeah. So now that's done. Testing is done. Now let's look at some of the resources that, but we don't have access to the schema on the client. Uh, no, we don't have the access to the schema on the client, but in the playground we can take a look at all the schema, all the things that we have. Like for writing the front end, the client code as well, we need some info about the schema, because we are like selecting all of these fields. So we need to have some knowledge about the schema, like what are the fields on the schema. So for that we can use this docs to uh, check what are the schema, what are the function there. So by GraphQL, yeah. So just a second. Yeah, so the unsubscription data. So what we are doing in subscription data is we are simply writing the query, or we are mutating the query. So we have the Apollo client doesn't. In some cases, it implicitly updates the query for us, and in some time we have to update it. For example, if I am changing a single block, if I'm changing a single block item, then in that case, once I do the mutation, and if I return everything that is there in the cache, let's say in the cache we have these things, like we have the title, description, cover image, and author. If I return all of these fields and nothing more and nothing less from the mutation, then in that case the Apollo will handle the cache updation by itself. But in this case, when we are adding something in a list, uh, in this case we have a list of blocks and we are adding a new item to it. In this case we have to explicitly write the write query function. So I hope that is understood, that clears a doubt, Lakshay. So in case we are updating a single block, yeah. So now take a look at some resources. The first resources which I find very helpful is the awesome GraphQL. Now the awesome GraphQL is having everything that is required by GraphQL. Like you can see all of the code examples for Ruby, PHP, Python. Like if you want to use GraphQL with Java or Python, you can use you can use this resource for it. And you also have a lot of tooling or documentation. Then at the end we have a lot of blog posts, then a lot of courses and videos and podcast as well. So if you have any doubts regarding GraphQL, yeah, I will be sharing you the link. So this is what we have here. Then the next thing that I feel very good is the Apollo documentation, the official documentation of Apollo. It has like you can use Apollo with your React, as well you can use with native iOS and native Android. In this Apollo documentation, you can like see why adopt GraphQL. Like it has a lot of good resources. The documentation is pretty good. So yeah, like I have missed any question. So yeah, so thank you everyone, and thank you Team of Code for organizing this amazing uh, event. And if you have any doubt, you can connect with me in this platform and you can ask me, or you can just drop a hello in general, so that I would love to hear from you that we have joined the session. Out of context, but can you share the VS Code theme? Also the font. Okay, I will share the VS Code theme as well. Yeah. So in this thing, in the play in the GitHub repository, you can get the link of the playground as well, the backend playground, the GraphQL backend playground as well. So yeah, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Pradeep. This is actually very good. So I'll tell you the real feedback, the live feedback I just got in my DM. Uh, I've just posted in the chat. I just got this. Okay, Swapnadeep is in 12th and he knows about publisher subscriber mechanism, GraphQL. Really amazing. Really amazing, Swapnadeep. It's actually very good. So when I was in 12th, I was struggling with the notepad, I think, when I was there. And I was struggling with the Windows XP installing and all. So very good, Swapnadeep. I'm very happy that you are there with us from the day zero, and still I can see the growth. So, frankly speaking, I can see the growth with uh, with all the members who actually are attached with us. So he's in actually 12th. So that's the thing. So if you have missed the initial 1 minute, I have never felt. So the thing is, ki, this time I didn't get the time to review all the slides and all. So, but I know, Swapnadeep, I'm having trust on all the speakers. So I thought, ki, let it be this time, and he actually organized very well. The way he uh, presented the intro of all the things in the slide, then he moved to the demo thing, and he has created a git very properly with all the branches. So what, Swapniti, we can do, you can share all your social links in the chat. Let's connect together over the social platform as well. And
Okay.
what you can do, if any doubts are there on the GraphQL side, right? And anyone, definitely, Swapnadeep is also a learner, right? So if anyone feels, you can answer those questions in the group.